Alright, hello citizens of the Nigelverse. It's Nigel here once again, and welcome back to Labyrinth. Episode 85 of Nigel Dixie's Tales from the Labyrinth. And, it's crazy to think that we're 85 episodes in, but, for today's episode, I wanted to do something a little bit different. And, so, if no, normally if you come to Tales from the Labyrinth, normally I read poetry and sometimes some other stuff. But I'm sure some of you in the back of your mind may be wondering what got me into poetry in the first place. And allow me to kind of explain and kind of take you through why I love poetry so much. I think I've mentioned it before on the channel. Why what kind of got me into poetry and why I like poetry, but I don't think I've fully addressed it. What exactly got me into poetry? And if I have already, I apologize. So what really got me into poetry? How did we get to the point where I love to read poetry? I love writing poetry, and I love love reading other people writing poetry. Um, I would say it kind of has two starts to it. First when it first really started, um, the first real start was when I was much younger, much smaller, of a young man. Sometimes I would watch, or not watch, read poetry. It kind of from time to time, they have poetry for kids and stuff like that, and I would occasionally write a poem or two here and there, but it wasn't really anything too major or too massive when it came to me writing poetry. But I would say where my last, or I should say, where the other beginning really began was in college. And I believe this is where I really got into it. In sophomore year of college, back around 2019 or so, I had a class. I had a poetry class, I should say. It was called Intro to Poetry, and what we did there was we really read and analyzed poetry. And poetry, like I mentioned, I was kind of into, but not really anything super duper major. But that poetry class, it also helped that the professor was really awesome. Normally, when it comes to college, I'm sure my fellow college students or even fellow former college students can relate. A course I graduated last year, or in May of 2022. But normally, I feel like a professor oftentimes can kind of make or break a class. As oftentimes, when you have a professor that's really passionate about their subject, what they're teaching about. And granted, you would think that a professor could and or should be at least passionate about what they're teaching about, but not all teachers and not all professors are, or some quite aren't, unfortunately. But but this professor, as we were really reading and analyzing poetry, and I am scrolling through a page I have on Facebook to see when I first started posting it here, because it'll also tie into the story. But yeah, when you have a professor that's really interested and passionate about what they're talking about, it can really add to your excitement of the subject matter as well. And the poetry professor that I had was really cool. Really awesome. The poetry we analyzed was really interesting. We analyzed several different poets, such as Robert Creeley, Frank O'Hara, Maya Angelou, who Miri Baraka, poets like that. And so that really also got me into it. But I was also inspired to write poetry of my own. So on October 6th of 2019, I created a group on Facebook. This is before I realized I was able to make pages. So I do have now a page for the Nigelverse over on Facebook, and that is in the link tree in the description. So go follow me there, or across, as well as other social medias. But yeah, so I started it in October of 2019 and started really writing poetry for the group. I would write in it, I believe, every week or so. The page is kind of dormant, and mostly because I kind of not really sure what to do with it. It mostly because I've taken the poetry over here to YouTube, pretty much full time. Yeah, so I started writing poetry there, inspired by the class, and eventually it led to me. At first, I started off writing my own poetry, but then it kind of led to me writing, reading, and posting about other people's poems, and and poetry from other people as well. So that, I think, really is where my love of poetry began, and I would write poems, and a lot of the people, mostly friends and family. So maybe a slight bias there, but a lot of people really reacted positively to it, and really hyped it up and everything, and I believe it was in 2020. March 30th of 2020, where I did my first poetry reading, which kind of was like the genesis of Nigel Dixie's Tales from the Labyrinth, without me even really realizing it. So, I read a poem that I had wrote. Bells was the name of it, and I had read it for the channel as well. Actually, I don't think it was too long ago when I read Bells, but I believe it was, or it might have been a while ago. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah. So, stuff like that had really helped my love of poetry. I found the more poetry I wrote, and the more poetry that I read, the more I also really liked and explored poetry in that regard, and it was fun, and it was interesting, and it still is. I still love reading and writing poetry, which is why I've branched out. I've increased the number of poems as well that I read for the channel here, and for this segment, Tales from the Labyrinth, and seeing other poets. It it was the same class where I learned about the Poetry Foundation, the poetryfoundation.org, or finding a lot of poetry there, or a lot of poetry that I really enjoyed, which is why I incorporate them into these episodes. The link to that is also in the description, so go check them out. But just absolutely adoring poetry, and I would definitely credit the class and the professor, as well as me writing my own poetry, that really got me into it, and I'm still into it. I still love poetry. Sadly, I haven't really been to too many poetry slams or anything like that. As I definitely wanted to go, and then the pandemic struck. But I think I should probably go to at least one or two in the future. Maybe I'll talk about it once I do. Who I would definitely love to go. I always say I want to go. And this really goes anywhere. It's kind of a bad habit of mine, admittedly, where I say I want to go somewhere, I want to do something, but then I don't end up doing it. But this one I really do want to go to, because as poetry slam, stuff like that is also pretty interesting. I've seen footage of some of those on YouTube and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say that really is what really got me into poetry, and really got me exploring poetry and loving to talk about poetry, and even after I did the live stream, because I used to live stream on Facebook, where I did System Shock Radio and Tales from the Labyrinth, and that first live stream reading that poem, a lot of people reacted well to it, so I made it more of a regular thing, and that's really how Tales from the Labyrinth was born. I would say if you do like poetry, hey, I would definitely say Tales from Labyrinth is definitely for you. At least I would say. And I do love poetry. I do love writing poetry. I love reading poetry. I love talking about poetry. So, of course, for any episodes of System Shock, not a System Shock Radio, but Tales from Labyrinth, if you have any if you ever have any poetry requests or anything like that, at poems you want me to read or check out, I would definitely love to read them and or check them out. But yeah, I would say that's kind of how I got into poetry. But that is going to do it kind of for this video. A bit more of like I guess like a pseudo story time kind of video, but I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please do me a favor, or as always, like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video so you can see as soon as it drops. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts on poetry. Do you like poetry? Do you like reading? Do you like writing poetry? And if you don't, that is totally fine. I have other stuff on the channel for you to check out if poetry isn't really your thing. I also do, System Shock Radio reviews, stuff like that. And so if poetry isn't really your thing, that is totally fine. But nevertheless, thank you all so much for watching. In the next few episodes, I am planning on doing another long series reading, and kind of what we did for Romeo and Juliet. I'm not quite sure fully what I want to read just yet, but once I decide on it, I will definitely let you guys know. But thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.